coming in
Yeah.
now? Okay, sorry for the late start. We had some technical difficulties with the Zoom platform, and everyone's coming in now. So we'll give it a few minutes, just maybe 30 seconds to make sure any of the public who have signed on are in. Again, apologies. We had some technical difficulties with the Zoom platform, and the IT representative had to work through that. So it looks like those who are on are all in. Okay, so I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome to our January 4th, 2023 Board of Elections and Registration meeting. If everyone could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the
Flag
of
of
the
the
United
United
States
States of America and to the republic for which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, I'll roll call. Ms. Fasaro? Here. Mr. Mangan?
Here.
Mr. Schramm?
Here.
Ms. Cerniak?
Here.
And Ms. Williams here, all present. At this time, I would like to announce that the Board of Elections and Registration held an executive session on Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023, from 10 a.m. to 10:42 a.m. for the purpose of litigation regarding undated and wrongly dated mail-in ballots. No deliberation took place. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion to adopt.
Ms. Fasaro makes the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Mangan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any in opposition? Abstentions? None heard. Agenda is adopted unanimously. That will now move into public comment on agenda items. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board on matters listed on the agenda, limited to 3 minutes, 1 comment time per person. We don't have anyone here in person, so we're going to move right to the Zoom platform. I see, go ahead, Walt, is it Mr. Griffith?
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. How are you? Happy New Year to everyone on the board.
Wait a second.
Okay.
We're having the trouble hearing him. Can the volume be turned up?
Can you hear me
Try
now?
that again, Mr. Griffith.
How's that? How's that? Is that better?
Wait a second. He's got to
Okay.
turn it up on our monitor inside
Okay.
here.
Okay. Testing
Just-
1 2. Test.
Well, I'll let you.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing.
There we go.
Perfect.
There you
Okay,
go.
well, okay, now it's nice and loud and clear. Okay, let me get my timer. Not that we need it, but we'll get that ready. Because that's all I'm doing on my cell phone too, is not playing text thing. I'm just getting the timer ready. Okay, go right ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Griffith. Did we lose him?
Paula jumped on and knocked him off, I think.
No, I still see.
Well,
Oh,
I see him too, but she came up, which I think knocked him off the.
Are you there, Mr. Griffith?
Well, what happened to him?
No. No response. He is there. Can you tell Mr. Ramirez? Oh, now he's off. So he might
He's
be,
logging back.
he might be logging back in. While he's doing that, we can get back to him. Is there anybody else on the Zoom platform who would like to speak? I don't see any other hands up. If you want to speak, you can just raise your hand by clicking the raise hand button tab on the bar down below on the Zoom platform. We'll just give a minute until he signs back in, and we'll give him an opportunity.
Make sure he didn't text me.
Okay, well, what we could do is we can move forward, and when he signs back on, we can stop and go back to him. I think that would be okay. So we'll go into
Here he
the,
is. He's coming back on.
Oh, okay.
okay. Okay.
Did I get
Mr.
cut off,
Griffith,
Madam?
it-
I'm
it
sorry.
looks, yeah, you got kicked out or whatever of the program. So go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I just appreciate the board looking at the issue about the
Oh,
Go
What
again.
the heck is going on?
It happened again?
yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Hmm.
Well, he's still there.
Now you're still there.
We lost the
We
audio.
can't hear you though. I don't know if it's on your end or our end. Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So weird.
No, we can't hear you and you're unmuted. Don't know. I don't know. How about if we try this? Maybe Ms. Glennon, if you could unmute and just say hello to us and we could see if it's on our end or Mr. Griffith's end.
Okay, I just unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Huh.
can.
Okay, and I cannot hear Walter either.
Yeah, now he's back off and maybe trying to sign back in again. Okay, thank you for that check. So it seems to be working here on our end. So if he signs back in again, we'll give him an opportunity. We'll move back into the meeting. Approval of meeting minutes from the regular meeting on December 14th. There were pages 3 through 8 on the agenda, under the agenda, uploaded to the agenda website on the county website. It was the December 14th, 2022 meeting. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Mr. Mangan
I'll second it.
and seconded by Mr. Schramm. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any in opposition? Any abstentions? None heard. The meeting minutes from December 14th, 2022 are approved. We'll now move into the agenda items. The first item on the agenda is the solicitor, and it states $30 additional payment to judges of election for pickup and delivery of election materials is amount allowed by the election code. This was something we had tabled at our last regular meeting because we didn't have the information at that time. So I'll turn it over to our solicitor, Attorney Raddick, and to give information on that.
Yes, I looked at this and I also, I mean, I tried to see, we're not exactly sure where the $30 came from. There was some information that it may have been at some point put in to accommodate judges for use of their cell phones. But it's not part of the statute. So I would say that you have to follow the statute and that it should be put back at $20, which is allowed under the statute.
Okay. All right. Now, we do have that farther down on the agenda to address under the board. Oh, sorry, I didn't turn off my alarm for Mr. Griffith. So we can discuss that further on the other under the board. I see that Mr. Griffith is back. Mr. Griffith, we did have somebody else talk and they were able to talk, another public person. So we don't think it's on our end, but we want to give you an opportunity one more time to try if you'd like to offer public comment.
No, that's okay. I think Attorney Raddick addressed my issue perfectly, and I appreciate the opportunity to give my comment. But you've addressed it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go now into the Bureau agenda items. And the first one is the electronic poll book use for January 31, 2023 special election status update. I'll turn it over to Acting Director Beth McBride to give us the information on that.
So both Emily and myself tested the electronic poll books that we currently have at the Bureau. And we tested these with the help of Greg Kurtz and Bill McIntosh from Building and Grounds. And our test was successful. We were able to power them on and run a report on each of the machines that will be used at each precinct. and they seem to work. Now, I would take that with a grain of salt, just because, I don't have experience with operating the electronic poll books. And Emily is not all that familiar with them either. So we are bringing in ES&S for logic and accuracy testing. I'm waiting to hear back from them to finalize the dates, but it will be 2 days in late January. And as soon as, they perform their logic and accuracy testing, then we should be good to go. And worst case scenario, if they don't work, we could always print the paper poll books for the special in-house. So we do have a backup plan if needed, but knock on wood, so far so good.
I have a question about the electronic poll books, because I know there's been a lot of discussion about the need for new electronic poll books. Would it be possible for the board members to get, or if you don't have it, maybe have it done, an inventory of, and I know maybe this wouldn't be the time in preparing for the special election, because you're just addressing the poll books that you're going to be using for those wards, which are how many? It's certainly not all of the e-poll books. So my question is, maybe after the special election, would it be a good time, well in advance of the primary, to get an inventory of the poll books, the e-poll books, to find out how many have issues, what issues they are, how many are in working order, kind of a synopsis from ES&S of the status of the e-poll books? Is that something that is possible?
Yes, definitely. And that's certainly our plan, moving forward into the primary election. We want to establish exactly how many of these books are working appropriately and how many aren't. So after the special election, that'll be a priority for us.
Okay. All righty. Any other questions or information from any of the other board members about that status update on the e-poll books before we move to the next agenda item? Okay, the next agenda item is also under the Bureau, and it's the January 31st, 2023 special election update information.
Sure. So we received confirmation a couple of weeks ago that from the Department of State that the Libertarian candidate will not be on the ballot for the upcoming special election. Long story short, I received an email this morning from another director in another county that's impacted by the special election, stating that the Libertarian candidate who was rejected by the Department of State has filed court action to be on the ballot. As you all know, we started logic and accuracy testing today. So, this isn't an ideal situation, but it's not something that we could control. And we also don't have a timeline, and the Department of State doesn't have a timeline of when we don't have a court date set for a decision that will be made or anything like that. So at this point, we're just proceeding with logic and accuracy testing as planned, in accordance with the certification of candidates that we received from the Department of State yesterday. So that's kind of, the biggest issue that we're facing at the moment. But ultimately, we just have to roll with the punches at this point and see what type of decision is made by the courts. So other than that, everything is going smoothly. We are meeting our statutory deadlines. After logic and accuracy testing is completed, and we receive a little bit more guidance from the Department of State, we will be proceeding with printing our ballots. We'll send our files to Fort Orange and have them printed. We're beginning the process of hiring 15 workers for the special election to pre-canvass all of the mail-in ballots that come in. First and foremost, we're going to try to hire any folks that worked with us during the general election because they're familiar with the process already. So, and most of those workers indicated that they would like to come back. So that's great news. But other than that, we're moving forward as scheduled. Poll worker training is scheduled to begin this weekend. So, we're moving forward, and January 31st will be here before we know it.
And the military and overseas ballots have gone out, or do they go out after the logic and accuracy testing?
They have gone out in accordance with the statute. They have to go out as soon as we have that list of candidates from the state. So they have gone out already. UMOVA notice has been posted to our website, as well as our polling locations and sample ballots as well.
So I would imagine they would have gone out for all the other counties as well, because they have to match this statute as well.
The ballots went out already?
The military.
military.
and
Oh,
overseas.
military. I'm sorry. Okay.
I'm just saying that in reference to the court action with the libertarian candidate. So we'll have to wait and see on that, I guess. The only other question I have is for myself is the ballot drop box status for the Broad Street building in Hazelton. And is that all in order?
Hi,
So
Denise. Oh, sorry, Beth.
go ahead, Jen.
Sorry. So we're scheduled to meet on Friday morning for the camera install. And we're going to take our IT with us to test it when the camera is installed. So that should be completed by midday Friday. So we can certainly give you a status update after that.
Sure. It's still well in advance. I mean, the mail-in ballots aren't probably projected to go out if they're, until after LNA testing, the logic and accuracy testing. So that the earliest probably you would anticipate getting them out would be the end of next week. That's probably even earlier than,
Denise, I'd like to contest something.
okay. But, okay, let me just finish this. Is that like do you have kind of a ballpark on when you think the mail-in ballots may go out, give or take a couple days?
We're aiming for next week, of course, given the tight time constraints with, the election being on the 31st. We want to get them out as soon as possible. So as soon as we have everything set with logic and accuracy testing, we will send the files over to our vendor. And then, the first batch of mail-in ballot voters will be sent to our vendor as well. So I'm anticipating sometime next week, but I'll certainly update the board when that occurs.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll open it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just, I have a little bit of an issue here. Maybe somebody can explain it to me. I'm not trying to be confrontational here. But we received an email stating that Jennifer Pecora has deferred to Beth McBride as her designee as the clerk to the board. That's what we were. So I would like to know why she is on if her designee is Beth. She gave her responsibility over to Beth. Why is she answering the questions or serving as clerk to the board when Beth McBride is the clerk to the board now?
I don't know if she's answering in the role of clerk. I think she was just answering a question about
It's
the
just
ballot drop
it's
boxes
just
because
my-
she's handling.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not trying to be confrontational. I'm just trying to figure all of this out and understand it. I mean, is that a role of the clerk, or is that a role of the administrative head to do these things? Because from my standpoint and I could be wrong, from the Bureau standpoint of placing a box that would go with the Bureau office. Am I wrong? Because tell me I'm wrong.
No,
It's
the
fine.
clerk's role, I think that you might be a little mixed up with her responding regarding the ballot drop boxes. I don't see that as her responding as in the role with that as in the role of the clerk. The clerk's role for the board is an administrative role.
So
which
the
helps
administrative
with-
head places our drop boxes, is what you're saying.
Well, the Bureau, she's part of the Bureau leadership. She oversees the Bureau. It appears to me that they've amongst themselves maybe determined that she's helping them. I don't know. That's a question you could ask her.
Yeah, I think we
that's
need
my-
to straighten that out
if
in
you
the
wanna-
future. Not, it's fine for now. I think that's something that does need to be straightened out and maybe placed on the agenda for us to discuss and figure out.
What would you title that?
I don't know. That's what I'm
Yeah,
trying to
because
figure out here,
I-
because I have the administrative code. I have the charter here as well. And, I'm trying to figure, and I'm not telling anybody I know how to read this stuff, okay? making that very clear here, because I really am trying to make heads or tails of this. But there are responsibilities of the administrative head, there's responsibilities of the Bureau, and according to the administrative code, the Bureau follows our direction as far as their duties and responsibilities are based on our direction here. Let me find it here.
So you're basically asking, you're questioning the administrative services head.
Right. I
Is
wanna-
that her response, her or his responsibility, whoever's in that position, to take on the work
Dropbox.
of any of the work
Right.
of the Bureau?
Right.
That's what you're asking.
That's what I'm trying to
I don't know
figure
if
out.
that's a question probably for the solicitor to get back to us on.
And even still, when they weigh in, I think that we need to make a determination as to what the roles and responsibilities of our clerk versus our, and is it appropriate at that point, at some point for our clerk to designate someone else? Because I did speak to one of the framers, like we had talked about, that's something we do need to discuss as to whether or not this is what the intent, because it seems that the framers, when putting forward the administrative code, really kind of like, we're like, okay, well, we don't want it to default to the director every single time, so let's do it to the administrative head. And then we're supposed to, according to Title 25, name a clerk. So we were talking about that. We're through on that. But at the same time, we still need to figure it out, and we never actually came to a consensus.
Maybe we can.
I just want to say
yeah,
something really quick.
yeah.
We're shorthanded at the Bureau. We do not have a director, an official director. And the administrative head, the Bureau falls under her purview. So I don't see a problem with her stepping in and filling in where it's needed. I mean, maybe it's just me. I mean, this is a situation we don't have an official director. So I'm going to just stop there and,
Yeah, I certainly don't either. But I think it's maybe the solicitor's role to let us know if there's any kind of conflict of interest in there of responsibilities. But in the meantime, we'll turn it over. I see that Ms. Pecora has her hand up, so we'll let her go ahead, Ms. Pecora. You're muted though.
I wish,
Sorry.
I had, met the security company at the site. I did discuss it with a board member as we were in need of a drop box down there. I apologize if I overstepped. It was a matter of convenience because I live in Lower Luzerne County and that's where the box was going to be placed. If you would prefer, since I designated Beth as the clerk, she's more than welcome to take my place in meeting there for the install. From driving from. I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. I was just trying to be helpful. So,
Right, and
I
I'd
won't,
rather you be the clerk as named in the administrative code instead of designating someone else. That's what I don't know. That's my personal preference. I think we need to decide if you're gonna be the clerk to the board and serve in the Bureau office, then we need to decide that that's the way it is. Or if you designate someone, which I don't even know is appropriate, and if that is, and can be done or anything like that, we need to research that as well, and we also need to determine. But once you hand that off, does that make it so that now those responsibilities are on that person? Okay, and it's not against you, but if you're designating someone and someone doesn't do that job properly, that you gave them to do, now it creates an issue for either that person or you, as far as the responsibility is concerned. Do you see where I'm getting at?
I understand what you're saying, but as long as people are
Okay.
communicating effectively, I don't see how it would be a problem. So I think if we work on our communication as a whole, it wouldn't be an issue.
Okay, I'm going to just ask, what we're gonna do is, one, the clerk is separate again from doing the functions and helping out within the bureau, doing the everyday tasks. That's not the clerk's role. The clerk's role is administrative for the board, helping to get the agendas together, helping to bring the agendas to the meeting, helping to send in the legal notices, those types of matters, helping to secure the room for us, making sure our meeting minutes and agendas are in recordings are kept properly. So it's more of a secretarial type role, the clerk. So the clerk is separate from what Ms. Fusaro is talking about. Ms. Fusaro is asking if the administrative services head can also help with the tasks of the bureau. That's all it sounds to me. I'm going to turn that over to Attorney Raddick, and maybe we could, I could put that as an agenda item for the next meeting under solicitor, and she could give us a report and let us know if there's a problem, or if you want to share that now.
I would like to just share now that I don't see why we would be doing a report on that. I think you would have to talk to the county manager about that. Ms. Pecora could help with elections. We've historically always had an administrative services director that helped with elections. So I don't see an issue with her going to help with the drop boxes if, as she says, she communicates with the board and lets them know what she's doing. And also, she brought up the fact that she's from Lower Luzerne County, which is also probably one of the reasons she's doing it, because she probably has contacts in that area. So
And it's
I'm not
probably
sure that's
being-
wholly separate from the clerk position. And I mean, I think you're kind of saying that you wouldn't allow her to do anything, which is going to be an impediment to the bureau when there's only that many people who work in there.
Okay.
It's not about that. I think it's more about the responsibility. If well, so-and-so was supposed to do it, this one was supposed, well, I designated her to do it because that's the responsibility. It's gonna get messy, and that's why, I think that's why it's important that we put in writing who is the clerk and what the role is in future, which we'll discuss.
Yeah, the
At this
clerk is
point,
not on the agenda,
Yeah,
so
it's
let's not
So,
go into that
let's go on.
discussion. In the meantime, I will check with the county manager. I'll follow up and find out if the discussion of the responsibilities, and if he feels that there's any conflict with that. We're going to move, unless there's anything else on the special election update that any other board members wanted to bring up or discuss, or have any questions about that Acting Director McBride shared. Okay, we'll move into the next. The next agenda items fall under the board, and the first one is approval of the ballot for the January 2023 special election. And the sample ballots are posted on the elections main page. If you go to the elections, you just click right on elections, and that page would come up, and you can click on and see the sample ballots. And they've been up there now for several days, maybe a week. Is there a motion to approve the ballot for the January 2020?
No, I have
Question.
to.
Question
Sorry,
first,
I'm sorry.
discussion, I'm sorry.
This ballot is potentially subject to change depending upon the ability of the Libertarian candidate to be added. So how can we possibly approve a ballot that really isn't in its final state?
And I guess we'll turn that over to Attorney Raddick. Is this something that we should table to our next meeting, which is January 18th, I believe is the date?
I think you're
Is
going to have
that
to
too
get.
late?
I think you're going to have to get the information from Beth as to whether that's too late. But as of this time, we have nothing from the state that's told us to halt anything, or we have nothing from the court that's told us to halt anything. Yes, potentially. Can it happen? Yes. We are going to get reimbursed from the state from it if it happens, and we have to print double ballots. But as of this point, we have not been told. We have not received anything. And I think Beth can get into that further, because I had a discussion with her about that today.
Okay,
Okay, and
January 18th is our next meeting date, just to share.
okay, and according to, what did I say date that was? I don't remember. I wrote that. Oh, I wrote it here. Beth, on April 27th, 2022, we changed the procedure as far as the top of the ballot needs to show a pen, not a marker. That was also stated to you on during the general election to please change that. So I'd like to make a motion to approve these ballots with the exception of it being changed to a pen at the top of the page. As long as that's done, I'm good with.
Is that some, two questions and for Ms. McBride, is that possible to be done for the special election? Is it too far moving along to do that change? And two, your thoughts on, it sounds to me from what Attorney Raddick said that we could approve this ballot, and certainly if something changes, you're reimbursed. We may have to vote again to approve a new ballot. But do you, and her thought was if you had any indication or any thoughts on waiting until January 18th, because actually my thought is your thoughts are the ballots would already be in progress being mailed out. So I don't think we can wait that long to vote and approve this ballot. So if you want to address those two things, the pen that Ms. Fasaro brought up, and any thoughts on holding off on approving the ballot.
So at this point, we are going by the certified list of candidates that the state had sent us yesterday. I have not received any official correspondence from the state indicating that we should hold off on sending out our ballots based on this court action. So it's my recommendation that we proceed as planned, and worst case scenario, we pivot and we do what needs to be done. And then in regards to the pen, that's something that we could certainly change for the primary election. I'll make note of it now so that it's noted for the primary. But at this point, since we're already in the middle of logic and accuracy testing, to my understanding, Dominion would then have to change the whole program of the ballot itself to change that. And that would set us behind as well.
That was actually
and also in terms of waiting until January 18th to approve the ballot, I don't think that would be feasible, because the statutory deadline where we have to begin mailing out ballots is January 17th. So again, like I said before, we are on a very tight timeline, and we want to get these ballots out as soon as possible.
Okay, Mr. Susick, and you may want to reach out to him, because he had said it was like literally nothing to change that picture on top of the thing. And that is also why it was brought to you as our acting director. It was brought to you during the general election to address it prior to any of this taking place. And when I checked, those were still not, that picture was still not changed. And this is something that was voted on again on April 27th, 2022. So it is something that was voted on by the entire board back then and passed. So I don't understand how, when we make a policy and we set it and we vote on it, then all of a sudden, oops, sorry, we can't do that now. That doesn't fly with me. I'm just saying.
Well, we did send these ballots to the board last week for review, and had it been mentioned then, it probably would have been something that we could change. At this point, I don't know if we can. However, like I said, I will discuss it with Dominion.
Yeah, and my apologies. I just assumed that this job was being done properly.
Okay. All right. Anybody else want to give any input on the sample ballots before we move into? Is there a motion to approve the ballot for the 2023 special election?
Is this as is?
Well, my suggestion would be as is, and if the pen picture can be changed to a pen instead of a Sharpie, that would be acceptable within the vote as well. So So I'll make the motion for the approval of the ballot for the January 2023 special election. If the picture of the Sharpie is changed to a pen, that would be acceptable. And is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Mangan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any in opposition?
Opposition.
Ms. Fasaro? Any abstentions? None heard. So the motion passes 4 yes, 1 no. For the approval of the ballot for the January 2023 special election, and it's acceptable to adjust the Sharpie to a pen if it's able to be done for the special election. Okay, the next item on the agenda is additional payments to judges of election for pickup and delivery of election supplies and mileage reimbursement. It's for information, discussion, and board vote. The solicitor shared with us earlier that she recommends changing it to go back to $20 instead of the $30 additional compensation that the judges of election are given for this pickup and delivery of election supplies, because it's not in the statute. The statute only calls for the $20. This was something she also mentioned. She's not sure how that ever happened or when it happened. I didn't find anything in any of the minutes, looking back over all the minutes over the last several years, where there was no written in the minutes of where the $30 came from. So we discussed this at our last regular meeting and tabled it to get the more information. And so I'll open it up to and also the mileage reimbursement is 0.625 per mile. And just to share, if maybe Acting Director McBride would share with us the process for reimbursement for mileage for any of the judges of election.
So before elections, the administrative team calculates the mileage from the polling location to Penn Place for each of the judges that are returning their supplies to Penn Place. And, once we manually calculate that, the poll workers are then, the judges, are then reimbursed when they receive their check for election day.
Okay, those who are in the lower Luzerne County, do they drive all the way back to Penn Place?
No, they deliver their supplies back to Hazel Township Commons.
So that would be the mileage would go from the poll to Hazel Township Commons?
Correct. Yep.
How are we monitoring the handoff there? I mean, how is that working? Because I mean, I've heard this before.
That would have to be I think that would need to be a different agenda item, because right now we're discussing the additional payments.
Okay.
So
All right,
yeah, that would be something separate.
Be added to
But my question is how does the Election Bureau determine the mileage from the poll to, say, Hazel Township Commons, or the poll to the Election Bureau? Do they use like a Google app?
Yes. Yeah. It's just determined using a system like Google Maps or something similar.
Right. And so the administrative assistants do those calculations, or does the Election Bureau leadership?
The administrative assistants, they're the ones that are in charge of, ensuring that their poll workers are paid. So they're the ones doing those calculations, and they then have to fill out payment authorizations to ensure that their poll workers are paid, and those are all signed off by me. So there are checks and balances in place for that process.
Okay. So do you think that the process is best to figure the mileage up front by the Election Bureau administrative assistants rather than have the poll workers submit a reimbursement form?
Well, that's been past practice to have the mileage reimbursement pre-calculated for the poll workers returning supplies. However, moving forward, it's my recommendation that the poll workers are responsible to track their mileage. So I believe that's probably what we're going to end up doing for the special election and for the primary. However, I still want to review a few things before making that decision ultimately.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I'll open it up to any of the other board members if they have any questions on the additional payments, the 30 to the 20, and the mileage reimbursement. Neither of those have been voted on before in past board meetings that I could find, and a suggestion would be that we should vote and put it on record that the board has approved these the mileage reimbursement and how much for the additional payments for pickup and delivery of the election supplies.
If I can make a suggestion about the vote on the mileage, I would vote on the mileage as per the federal mileage rate because that's what the county uses. So if that changes, because it changes all the time, then that would be what would be used.
It's a good idea. Okay. Any other?
So, excuse me, Attorney Raddick, that would then also change the flat rate of the $20, correct?
No, I don't think that would change the $20 because that doesn't have anything to do with it. That's just a flat rate.
All right, so the mileage reimbursement is a separate dollar
Yeah.
amount than the,
Yeah,
well, here it says "and." I'm just saying, it says "and mileage reimbursement." So I didn't know if I had the liberty to carve the mileage reimbursement out.
well,
Would
it's
it
actually,
also be-
it's
Sorry?
separate in the statute, so the mileage
Okay,
reimbursement, yeah. So, I mean,
But
I would,
what's in front of me, it's not, so.
Yeah, it's probably just the way I worded it.
Oh, it's okay. It's just, I just wanted to clarify that.
What is the federal?
0.62.
That's the federal 0.625? So
Right now.
if we vote to keep it at the federal rate at all times, then we don't ever have to worry about it. We just go off of that. And when that changes, Is that what you were saying? Paul?
Yes.
All
that's
right,
what I'm
Tony
saying,
Raddick.
and plus, that's what
Yeah.
the county uses for mileage for employees, so, like, if it's across
I'm
the
okay with
board,
that.
it's the same, so if it changes, then you won't have to worry about it, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
You want me to make a motion? Does anybody else have any
No.
input? No? No?
Yeah.
Okay, motion to approve mileage reimbursement based on the federal mileage reimbursement rate for poll workers.
The judges.
Judges.
Oh, judges, I'm sorry, for judges.
Okay, we'll do these two. How about we do
Yeah.
these two votes separately?
Yeah.
That's good.
So Ms. Pissarro made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Schramm, and we'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Mangan,
Yes.
Mr. Schramm,
Yes.
Ms. Cerniak,
Yes.
Ms. Pissarro,
Yes,
and Ms. Williams, yes. And so the motion passes unanimously to approve the mileage reimbursement for based on the federal mileage reimbursement rate for the judges of elections. And then this separate motion would be for the additional payments to the judges of election. I'll make the motion. The additional payments to the judges of elections for pickup and delivery of election supplies going forward will be $20 in alliance with the statute.
I'll second it.
Okay. Seconded by Ms. Pissarro. Roll call vote. Mr. Schramm,
Yes.
Ms. Cerniak,
Yes.
Ms. Pissarro,
Yes,
Mr. Mangan,
Yes.
and Ms. Williams. Yes, the motion passes unanimously that the additional payments to judges of elections for pickup and delivery of election supplies going forward will be $20 in alignment with the statute. Okay. The third item under the board is the mail-in ballot curing notification for the January 31st, 2023 special election for information discussion and board vote. On page 9 under the agenda is the policy procedure that the board has been following for the election day pre-canvassing curing process. And within that, it does state that, and we did make this a vote that before every election, the board has to vote on if they're going to do this. It's not something that covers all elections going forward. So before each election, we vote on this. Is there any discussion from the board? I'll open it up. Is there a motion?
Okay, I'll move to use the curing process we have in place for the special election.
Ms. Cerniak makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mangan. Roll call vote. Ms. Cerniak,
Yes.
Ms. Fasaro,
No.
Mr. Mangan,
Yes.
Mr. Schramm,
Yes.
Ms. Williams, yes. The motion passes 4 yes, 1 no, to utilize the curing process in place for the January 31st, 2023 special election. Item number 4 is policies and procedures for sealing and deploying Dominion machines. Ms. Fasaro asked for this item to be placed on the agenda. I'll turn it over to her. She asked for it to be put on for discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what I have here, basically, it was obvious reasons why I added it to the agenda, though we've not received any additional information pertaining to the investigation, the paper investigation yet from the DA. We need to do what we can as a board to ensure the integrity of the future, the integrity of the elections. And we need to discuss what measures we will have to take, or what this will look like. And so the reason I kind of put this on here, and maybe I should have made it a little bit more of a generalization, because after a lot more thought, I thought maybe we could, moving forward, do a little bit more work on this. So I'd like to propose, and I'd like to know what everybody feels on this. I'd like to propose either the formation of a regulatory committee in which, certain policies or practices of the Bureau are reviewed and changed if necessary, or we start up board work sessions in order to start fixing these issues. And on this specific topic, I mean, we need to discuss what we can do to improve the deployment of the machines. I mean, I'd like to know, for one, first and foremost, on the document that we received, the SEAL team, is this list, I'd like to know from specifically, I think from Emily, because I think she's got the most knowledge in this area. And I would like to know, is this list inclusive of every single thing that needs to be checked? I think there needs to be accountability on this list. I think there needs to be a signature on each thing, in which each person is taking responsibility for, loading the additional paper into the machines, making sure that the printer trays are filled with the paper, replacing the thermal rolls. I mean, who did that? Who made sure that was done, and sign off on it, and with a date on the date that it was done? And therefore, we understand and we know that this has been done, and we can hold those accountable who haven't accomplished those things. This is just one faction of it, but I think, I'd like to know first and foremost what the board thinks on either form the formation of the regulatory committee out of our faction, or whether we should all do it together and just really start looking into policies and procedures and what's being done to, I think we need to start being more proactive instead of constantly trying to play catch up on things that have happened in past elections. You know what I mean? So and I'd like to open it up for discussion on that.
I'll go next. Well, it was requested to get the information on the sealing and deploying of the Dominion machines, and the board was sent that information and the policies and procedures from the Election Bureau leadership. If my thought is, if there are questions by any board members or recommendations, those have certainly been, can be addressed and have been in many ways by including other things, not just sealing and deploying the machines, but you get an email and you don't like something or you have a suggestion, you're certainly welcome to ask if that could be done, or to add that to the agenda. Can sign-offs be added to the policies and procedures for sealing and deploying? Personally, the formation of a regulatory committee or adding another meeting or doing this during board meetings, I think this is the role of the Bureau. They were tasked with creating the policies and procedures. I think they have a lot of them in place, because when this was requested, we received this, and we've received other policies and procedures. I'm citing pre-canvassing, logic and accuracy testing. I think a lot of that was in process and being worked on. I think there's been a lot of transition at the Bureau. So some of these things, when you keep having transitions at the leadership level, certainly these types of things, sometimes it causes a bit of a delay. And because there are other things that take precedent over, especially when you're having 3 elections last year, and now we're having another special election within 2 months, to be able to be working on the policies and procedures. I can see where they might take a back seat. But if there's something that a board member is concerned about or would like to see added to one of those, certainly that I would suggest bring it up, be specific, and list exactly what you'd like, present it to the board, put it on the agenda. That would be my suggestion. Any other board members want to give input on or regards to Ms. Fusaro's questions?
I get my only statement to follow what you said is that I understand that things can get pushed here or there, but then you're violating the policy and you're violating the procedures. So just, if we have these in place and there's a policy, then you follow the policy. If there's a procedure, then you follow the procedure. Is there some merit with regard to what Ms. Fusaro said about having people sign off on things like a task list? That could be an internal thing to say, yes, here's my internal checklist. This is what I've done. I'm sure that there's something in place for that, but it can't be, we're going to try to follow the policy. We're going to try to follow the procedure. We're going to have to follow the policy and procedure. And that's regarding anything, not just deploying machines or anything else. Okay, I mean, that's really all I wanted to add to that.
Okay, okay, the only thing I have to say, this is it's almost like there's been a cultural thing with the county, that if you didn't have to write it down or make the procedure, you didn't do it. You kept that all to yourself. It was brought forth that historically the administrator has worked on elections. I did speak to somebody who was, I believe, on the original SEAL Team 6 when we started using the machines fairly recently. And he said when the admin had his procedure, the guys went in. First day, they loaded the paper. Second day, they checked the paper levels. And then they loaded the power cards. Third day, they went in. First thing they did, check the paper was there. Then they checked the power cords were there. And then they loaded the sanitizer. This was during the pandemic, so I don't know if they load sanitizer anymore now. But the thing is, there was a procedure that was used. Of course, the admin left, and he apparently just took all his notes with him. This is why we've been, and actually, I'm not the only one. That it's not on the board. The Election Integrity Committee that was formed. This is one of their things that they suggested. Get a written procedure manual down.
There you go. And I got
So,
that right here.
and I've been assured that this has been done. I know Emily Cook has said she's been working on that, did a lot of work on it. I haven't really seen anything, but again, except when it's been requested and then it's been provided. I don't know that we really have to look into this so much. Like I said, there's suggestions, we can always make them. I know we came up with we voted on a specific procedure on the ceiling and people initialing things. That might even be an overreach on the board, as you know, to do that, because it would have been maybe the Bureau should have set something up. We could have just, okay, yeah, set something procedure to check these seals or track these seals more thoroughly, but that actually really went into detail on how to do it. I'm not sure that we need any committees or anything. It's just that if we, and I'm sure if I go to the Bureau and say, can I have a look at this procedure manual, that I'm sure I could access it. I'm sure people would give me access to it. So I don't know that that we really have to, you know, if you're concerned about a certain issue, you should probably just go to the Bureau or email them and say, can I have this procedure? See what it looks like. If you have suggestions, you can make it. I mean.
Okay, well, I mean,
Let's,
yeah, Danny.
Mr. Tran.
I kind of agree with Audrey that if you have a procedure, what you need to do, we don't have to complicate it by adding something else or try to form a committee. I think if they have a policy, a procedure, sort of like a direction of what you do. Every place I have ever worked, there was always a direction of things you had to do. On the first of the month, you did this. On the second of the month, you did this, and everything was set up. And if they have a procedure of what to do to set these machines up, I think if they just annotate that what they did like that before, where they said they make sure there was paper in it, and they initialed it. 5 people went over, made sure all the machines were filled with paper. That should suffice then. You know who the 5 people were. And you assume they did every machine. If they didn't, you will find out soon enough. And then you can hold those 5 responsible for it because they didn't follow the procedure that was in place. And as long as the procedures are in place, you know, you can assign people to do it, know who went out to do it that day. Because I did that a lot of times when I was working with the government to make sure that work got done, because when it was just a general go over and do this, it wasn't getting done. But when you actually went out and did specifics, it got accomplished. So if you had a thing where, oh, on Monday, they're going to do this, on Tuesday, they're going to do this, on Thursday, they're going to do this. And if you want to go over and check it, you can go over there on Friday and see 3 or 4 machines if it was done. And if it wasn't, then you have to check even more. So I think as long as they have a procedure that they have, if it needs to be added to it, we could add another step to it if we want. But I wouldn't say somebody else, we should get involved in that, because that to me is, they should have the procedure, they should know what needs to be done, and then they should see that it got done. And we should only go in there after if it hasn't been done, and it should have. That's the only time, you know, to look at it.
What about prevention? No. What about the fact that, I mean, we're gonna let something happen and then go back and address it when we should address it in advance so it doesn't happen?
Well,
I
A
get it.
board member can ask
Well, this is
to
what,
go
no,
in and
this is
oversee.
this is what I'm saying. I mean, yes, I trust people to do their job. Yes, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? It's only a couple months ago that we had a November election that was what it was. Okay, I don't want another one like that.
I'm with you.
Okay, I don't want another one like that. So my point is that should steps be taken in advance to prevent something like that, as opposed to going in after the baby's dead. Okay, so yeah, I think it's worthy of further discussion. I would like an opportunity to know what presently we have in terms of procedures and policies, because right now we're talking about things we don't really know. specifically. As far as adding additional duties, if it's an election, somebody verifies, it could be a phone call. Was this done? It doesn't have to be babysitting. That's not our rule. Okay. However, in the end, after something happens, whether it goes good or it goes bad, it's our responsibility. So if we can prevent an error prior to and providing a smooth election, then I think we should do it rather than be faced with phone calls at 9:05 on election day. So I think that's within our purview. I think it's within our responsibilities.
I'd like to, when I first joined this board, I was told that the board sets the policies and procedures for the Bureau to follow.
There should be existing policy. I mean,
Right,
we're a
right. I'm
governmental
getting to
agency.
that. I'm getting to that. We have been talking about a manual for a long time. Since I've been on the board, that's one of the things that we've been talking about is, well, before even I got on the board, and then a little bit while before the primary, we were talking about a manual to follow and creating one. So, and I actually wrote out a motion before I even came here today. I just wanted to see how everybody felt about this. And right here, it says we need to start being proactive on things. We need to make sure that these things don't happen before they happen. We need to make sure that these policies and procedures are in place prior to the elections so that these things don't continuously start to happen. We need to start being proactive. So I'd like to make a motion to have all original editable Word documents for all current election policies and procedures followed by the Bureau to be sent to the Board of Elections and Registration for review and approval. And that way we know what's happening behind closed doors. We know what the policies and procedures are because we don't even know what they are. How do we expect them to follow policies and procedures that we as a board have set in the past when we don't even know what they are because we're fairly new ourselves? I mean, we need to know what these policies and procedures are, and if we have suggestions and believe that they should be changed or fixed, that we need to do that. So that's my motion.
Well, I don't know that we can have a vote on this because
I would move it, I would make a vote in the next, maybe on the 18th, depending on.
Okay, I can do that.
all right, because that's not, it wasn't on the agenda.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
not-
And frankly, I don't even know if,
I don't know if it's our role either. That's another thing. Is this something we can recommend,
well,
or do we have the right to approve?
well, I don't know about that, but I think we certainly have a right to see everything, and I don't know that we need to vote on that, really. I mean,
And the other thing is, and I'll certainly make a note to put it on the agenda for the
Mhm, yeah.
18th. But another thing just to keep in mind, since it's not on the agenda, is, what's all going on with the special election and the amount of time to offer to the Election Bureau leadership to provide that. But anyways,
Well, I would like to make a motion at least for what we had on the agenda. I would like to make a motion to have signature and date boxes on the SEAL team document that are here, and to have everyone sign and date when they do these before an election. I think it would be wise right now to make sure that everything is done properly and that we do our checks and balances before this.
Again, I don't think we can vote on this because it's not on the agenda.
It is on the agenda.
Well, not for a vote.
policies and
We
procedures
can make
for
a
sealing
motion
and
at any
deploying.
time.
It's discussion. It's not.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is
but it-
only for discussion.
Okay,
There's
I will
no
put a
vote.
possible vote after every single thing I put on the agenda from now on. It doesn't matter. You can make a motion during any, during on anything during the thing, as long as it's on the agenda.
Yeah, but the public, if it's for the public, for the
Okay,
sunshine law,
that's
so
fine,
that
yeah.
if they're expecting a vote, or if there was not a possible vote on there and we vote, I think that would be where there would be a concern. So just to avoid any problem with that, I think maybe it'd be better to put it onto the next agenda, which is just a couple weeks away. So these items, all three next items are just for discussion.
That's fine.
Is there any more discussion though? Anything else on this item before we move on?
I would like to know what we have, what the Bureau has in place, rather than reinvent the wheel. That's what
Yeah.
maybe they have a checklist. I don't know. I'm not looking for an answer this evening, ladies. I'm just saying, I don't know what's in place. So I think there needs to be a little more research into what exists, and we'll move forward positively from there. That's really all I have.
Okay. All right, we'll go to the next item, number 5, which is provisional ballot review. Ms. Fusaro asked for this to be on the agenda for discussion.
No, this was, we already passed to review all provisionals after elections. And Danny and I handled that last time. I don't think it's necessary for this election because we don't have the provisionals that are for review this time don't really need to be reviewed. We have Republican, it's mostly the reason we passed it was because there was, during the primaries, we have Republican for the Democrat and Democrats trying to vote Republicans. And so we have people trying to cross vote on that. And that's why we originally had that. The reason I added this to the agenda is because maybe I should have asked because we had all agreed that since the voters had signed the attestation on the provisional envelope, that this was just as good as a registration form. You remember, because they signed off on it, and all of their information was on that. I guess I'm trying to ensure that the provisional envelopes are being reviewed and the information on every single one, like we voted, is actually being entered into the SURE system like we said we were going to do. So that's my question is, are all of the provisional ballots being reviewed after the election as we voted on, and their name, address, phone number, and email, and all other pertinent and information being added into the SURE system?
That would be a question for Ms. McBride.
For Ms. McBride, yes.
Yeah, if I'm understanding the question correctly, yes, we do input any necessary information after the provisionals are moved forward and approved by the board.
Okay, no, we're not talking about when they're move forward and approved by the board. When the envelopes, any provisional envelopes after the election, and this goes along with the policy and procedure type stuff, but the reason this was added was to ensure that all of those envelopes, the stack of envelopes after the election, is being taken and all of the information is entered, like their name, their address, their email address, their phone number is inputted from that form, the provisional ballot envelope, into the SURE system. And that's what I'm just trying to ensure, that process is being done and completed, because that's something we voted on during the primary, to make sure that review is done and that information is taken off those envelopes for every single provisional envelope and being placed into the SURE system.
Yes, all that information is placed into the SURE system.
Okay, thank you.
Just in follow-up to that, Ms. McBride, is it also inputted the ones rejected, if they're rejected, and the reason why?
Yes, they are also inputted into the SURE system.
And if they're accepted, that's also inputted, that the provisional was accepted.
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, so it's, if someone wants to, they get a ticket when they do a provisional, which has a number on it, so they can follow up, go online, check the number, and in inputting that, I've never done it, so I don't know how it actually works, but they should get information saying if it was rejected and why, if it was accepted, And that, if anyone from the November general, could they go on now and see that? Is that all inputted?
Yeah, all of the provisionals from the general have been inputted at this point by the administrative team. So anyone who voted provisionally should be able to go online and see that information.
And you're talking about not just the reasons, you're talking about also their phone number, email address, all that information has been taken off those envelopes and entered.
Yes, that is the instruction that's given to the administrative team when they're inputting the information. So that should all be.
I'm good with that. Thank you.
Were there any problems with inputting that information after the November general?
No. The only issue was that it took longer than it usually takes. But other than that, we didn't experience any issues in putting that information.
There shouldn't be any provisions for this special. Because it's ballot.
Well,
There could be a mail-in going to surrender. That would be a provisional, or if there's not in the poll book, then that would be a provisional. So there
it might be.
could be some, hopefully not the number that we just got. One other suggestion, or just throwing this out there to Ms. McBride for the provisional ballot review. In our adjudication process, if you find that there's a better process for compiling those envelopes for you, I've already thought about that since this past election. I know we put notes, I put sticky notes on all the rejecteds and reasons why. If there's any suggestions you have to help you and the administrative assistants in when you get them, after adjudication, to input them, certainly let us know.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. The next item, unless there's anything else anybody has for that last item. The next item, number 6, is Board of Elections and Registration Bylaws. Ms. Fasaro asked for this to be put on the agenda, and it's on the agenda for discussion.
So county council has bylaws. I feel that we should too. I don't feel that ours should have to be a document as intense as this one, or as extensive, and this is double-sided. So this is their bylaws, but I think that we should have procedures for operation ourselves and hold ourselves accountable to certain policies, procedures, and also practices or best practices, or whatever we decide to do. But I think that having a document like this would be beneficial to us, not only for people, for us, but people who succeed us, and come after us and know how to do certain things, or
Given the level of intervention that we get on a daily basis from the state, they pretty much mandate to us what our practices are. So I don't know how much latitude we would have with developing our own regulations when we can get sidetracked at any given moment by an email or a call from the
did
Bureau
you
of
get to
Elections.
read these at all?
No,
Okay, you'd understand a little
but no,
bit.
I understand bylaws, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying that as an election bureau, we don't have the autonomy to just do a lot of things on our own. We're mandated by the State Bureau of Elections or Board of Elections or whatever it's called to comply with them, which could potentially derail any bylaw that we may develop on our own. I'm not saying it's not worth looking into and exploring. I agree with you that we should have a certain standard of operation, but again, with the understanding that we're often at the will of the state.
And I understand that. I think it's
Okay.
more of just along the lines of how meetings should be run, the time limit on meetings, what a quorum is, the clerk to the board, if that
Well, don't we have that? though?
special meetings.
I mean,
We don't have that in writing. We don't have that as a document. And I think that it's something that we should have just to, review something like this and put something small together, and whether or not, I just think it would be easier when someone comes on board to to receive something like this and understand, okay, during a debate, you don't address somebody by their first name, or, I mean, you gotta read it to understand what I'm talking about. Read it and then you'll get it. It's more of, what we follow in a meeting, what kind of rules we follow in a meeting, what we do as a board, what happens when somebody's first appointed, and what type of a role they're gonna take. And it's just those types of things. It's more along the lines of our personnel matters, kind of, and how we conduct ourselves. And I think it would be good for us to iron some of that out, even for myself, to understand certain things and to understand how to go approach certain things. Because as a citizen board, when a person comes on here, I like Madam Chair, calling you Madam Chair is that's a term of respect. But see, when you don't go to these meetings and you don't do those types of things, how are you supposed to know that? And when you're brand new coming onto this board, or going to any meetings or anything like that, how are you supposed to know how to conduct yourself? And this is just a sort of like a guideline to help us, every single person that comes on. I give you a lot of credit, Denise, for coming onto this board. And did you know that in our county charter, it says that someone's to be named by the board, and to come in off the street, be named by the board and take over as chair? That's what this says. That's what this says. So you got named by the board, you came in, took over as chair, day one. That's it. No question. I can't be chair. He can't be chair unless literally it says that in here.
Yeah, there's a lot of our conduct that is already
Right.
constrained by the.
So
by the
how
charter.
is she supposed to know even how to conduct a meeting? Okay, now that's just saying, I'm just saying that it would make life a lot easier for those in the future that come on to understand. I know for myself, this would have been extremely helpful. And it's not just conduct of meetings, it's other little things that we should follow as a board. And I think it's a good policy to have, whether we work on it as a board and behind the scenes and bring it to the public as a document, and we kind of email back and forth, and let's add this or whatever. Or and I think even just using this as a baseline to go off of, but not as intense. I think it would just help a lot of people. I know it would have helped me. That's all. I'm just saying it would have helped me to understand a lot more. So,
Other board members, thoughts?
No, I know how Alyssa feels when you don't know what's, what's what, to go in. And I wish, I had some idea, because one of the first questions I had was, how come there's only Democrats and Republicans? That was a real
Well, that's the charter.
issue,
Yeah, that's the charter.
Yeah,
we can't change that with bylaws.
No.
We have, the bylaws would be something that couldn't infringe upon what's already there by the
There.
charter
already
or
That would
the
have to have
administrative
everything reviewed
code.
by the office. of
but
law.
again, that discussion, having that discussion would cause us to maybe put a sentence in there so that the person that comes in after us understands that, so that they don't have to ask that question. I know that if I were a council member, I would have to take this and I would sit there and I would review this document and I'd be like, okay, all right, now I understand what that means. Okay, now I understand what this means. Okay, now I understand, oh, I can't do that. I can't say that. Maybe I should say this. This is, and it would just help a lot it would be a lot easier for us to have a document like this to guide us and to help us through these things. That's all I'm saying.
I have some thoughts on it. My first is a question is that, can the board create its own bylaws? And that's a question I would have for Attorney Raddick. I do see, and I did do a little homework and looked up some of the other boards, committees, authorities that are on the county website. And there are some who do have their own bylaws, and they obviously created their own bylaws, I think, or were the bylaws created for them? So my question is, does the board have the purview to create its own bylaws?
I would actually have to look at that because I'm not sure about some of the other committees and when those bylaws were written. Also, we'd have to make sure that nothing in the bylaws is going to go against the charter and the administrative code. We already have issues with discussions about how some people feel Title 53 and 25 clash with the charter and the administrative code, and now we're adding another document into it. So I'm not sure that that's gonna make anything clear, but I would have to, that has to be researched.
Okay. That was one of my other thoughts, that if this were something that was allowed, and there's merit for creating bylaws that to help new members understand, the meeting processes. I certainly did write that it probably would have to be done in cooperation with the Office of Law to give guidance and to make sure that it wouldn't be overstepping in the charter and the administrative code. My other thoughts were, I think there's merit for like a code of conduct as well for the members of the board, and if there were bylaws formed on, kind of, things that board members shouldn't do or should do or can do and can't do, these types of things, code of conduct, how their roles, whether in talking with the media, interacting with the Bureau employees, some of these things have come up in the past, speaking publicly as a board member. So this could possibly address some of these issues that I've also had concerns with. The other thought I had was, certainly I would recommend that the other board members, in the meantime, since this will probably be on the agenda again, and I know the Office of Law will look into if this is even possible for us to create our own bylaws, is to start looking around at some of the other bylaws that the other committees and boards that are on the website have, and look at them. I've looked at some, and I think some have been done very well. Some are very dated, as Attorney Raddick had mentioned. Some go way back to 2010, 2012, but they do have amendments to them that you can amend and adjust in times that they've re-looked at their bylaws, and then some of the boards and amended them or just approved as they are and continue with them. But I do think I think there's some merit for having how meetings are run, how they go, again, code of conduct for members of the board, the philosophy of the board and the role of the board that you would receive. I know when the county council does their ABCs interviews, this has come up where people have emailed me to say, I need your bylaws, because the ABC's meetings have shared with me to read the charter, the administrative code, and the bylaws. And we don't have any bylaws. So I'll say, well, we don't have any. And they do ask that question, I think, of them. Have you read the bylaws? I think I've heard them ask and think the council should know who has bylaws on these committees and boards and who doesn't. But we don't have any. As for the only other thought I had was on the process of how to do something like this. And I don't first off, it's not something we could do through email back and forth and creating a bylaws, because I think that would be considered deliberation. And I wouldn't want to violate the Sunshine Act. I think that's something that would have to be done publicly. And so then the process becomes, do we do this during a board meeting and have somebody doing this research, or form a committee? And then, to form a committee, then that comes, the thought process becomes, that should have to be a public meeting, just like the council committees. And there should be, maybe, a 2 or 3 person committee to maybe do the work that then is presented to the board and not take up our board meeting time. But those are just thoughts that have entered my mind. I'm getting way ahead of it because maybe we can't even create our own bylaws. I don't know, but we'll let Attorney Raddick look into that. I again encourage the other board members to start looking around at some other boards' bylaws to get an idea of what Ms. Fusaro is talking about, and ideas of if there were bylaws, what you might like on them and what you think should be on them. But again, I think the Office of Law would have to help with this and give guidance, and certainly check to make sure we're not infringing on the charter or the administrative code. And it would be a cooperative document that kind of answers all the things that aren't in the charter and administrative code. I think that helps any new board member know what they're getting into and be able to read it before they sign up to be onto the board. So that's my thought. Anybody else want to add anything to that? Certainly we'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting. Okay, with that, we'll move into the last part of our meeting, which is the comment on non-agenda items. It's an opportunity for members of the public to address the board on matters not listed on the agenda, but which must be within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Again, it's limited to 3 minutes and 1 comment time per person. And we'll have the same process. Again, there's no one here in person. So if there's anyone on the Zoom platform who would like to speak, just raise your hand by clicking the raise hand tab at the bottom. And we'll start with Mr. Griffith. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Hopefully I think it was a bad connection on my part before, and I apologize. My public comment on this part is there's a reimbursement form. I spoke to Ms. McBride earlier today about reimbursement for expenses for the 22 special election that we had, that the state's going to ask for. We're going to ask the state for reimbursement. And I was just curious if anybody, this was before Beth became the acting director, and I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware, and if they had seen that form, or are we going to go through it, get it compiled, get it to the board for its approval before it's sent into the state. As the controller, that's something that I have to sign off on, and I just want to be sure that as we did in the past, and I know, Madam Chair, you were aware that in the past we did submit the form when Mr. Susick was there. I just want to be sure that that form is approved by the board before we send it into the state, and we don't overstep somewhere along the line and miss a procedural thing. But it's clearly pretty timely. I guess they need to have it soon. There's no deadline, but of course, I'm sure the state would rather have it sooner rather than later. So just something for the board to consider. Last night we had the council had an interview session for people for the search committee. And one of the things that caught my attention was this Margaret Gushka. She applied for a search committee person on the county council. And she made a statement last night that said that there was a manual created by the election group company because she was part of that task. And I know, Madam Chair, yourself and myself asked a question about this manual. So there must be some manual out there somewhere, because this woman said that she clearly was a part of that force, that effort to create this manual. So if the board can look into that, I don't know where this mysterious manual or guidebook is, but I think it's something that the board should probably take a look and see if it's something that the election group helped us create. Then that's something we should have. The other thing is on campaign finance reports. We're coming up on a municipal election this year, and I know that's been an issue for the board in the past. Is we're still not actively involved in putting those campaign finance reports up online. And I certainly understand that the board has been super busy with special elections and all kinds of other things. But just something to put on your radar for future meetings is a campaign finance reports going back up online, because we are getting into a municipal election this year. And I think that's going to be something that everybody's going to be concerned about looking at. The mileage reimbursement that you did, thank you to the board for addressing that. The only thing that I would add to that at some point is that they use the mileage reimbursement form as provided by the county to get reimbursed for their mileage. So that way, if they are meeting a halfway point or something, that we're not using mileage from Hazelton to Wilkes-Barre when they're only going Hazelton to Mountaintop. I think they should fill out the mileage reimbursement form as provided by the county. And lastly, the question that I have is on Ms. Nassaro's issue with the bylaws. I think it's a really great idea. And Madam Chair, you spoke on a lot of the ideas that I wrote on my paper. But I think what's really important is there's a lot of things that we don't address and we just assume, like if the chair can't make the meeting, who runs the meeting? Obviously, we assume it's going to be the vice chair, but we don't have bylaws to say that. The agenda format, when is public comment? We assume that this is the format, but there's nothing written down. Do we follow
Right.
Robert's Rules of Parliamentary Procedure? Is that something that the board follows? Is there a vice chair that's required? Public comment period time and stuff. Removal from a board member. We just had that issue come up. What is the procedure for the bylaws for the board to determine whether a board member needs to be removed for absence? Maybe you get somebody who never attends. You should put those things in your bylaws. So there's really a good reason for having bylaws, and I think a committee would be perfect to look at that. Maybe get 3 people, have a bylaws committee and work with the Office of Law to get something like that accomplished for future reference for future boards. So I know I'm
Thank you
really
very-
close to my edge. So thank you very much for the time and
Thank you.
appreciate your effort. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to say, thank you, first of all, Mr. Griffin, for bringing that mileage issue up. I really appreciate your office, like you actually brought that up, and that was the reason why we kind of got on top of that. Also, I believe, and I could be wrong, but, and somebody please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was the election group that had a manual that possibly we could have had for $15,000. And I believe that was their price tag on their report. And I believe there may have been a manual, from what I understand, included in that, but I'm not sure 100% on that. So I just wanted to say that. Go ahead, Denise, I'm sorry.
Okay, Ms. Glennon, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, Claudia Glenn, Salem Township. Hi, I thought this was going to be a quick meeting. I think it's an excellent idea to have some kind of direction, whether it's in the form of a manual or, and I'm not talking for the Board of Elections, I'm talking for the election board that Alyssa brought up. I've been involved in a lot of organizations, and the times I've gone in when there is something already in place is like, 1 to 100 in terms of times going in when there isn't something. People should know what their responsibilities are, what they need to familiarize themselves with in terms of like the statutes, the codes, the charter, and I'm thinking that a lot of these things would be standard across any board that Luzerne County has. And instead of everybody taking up their time and reinventing the wheel for each committee that meets as part of the Luzerne County entity, that maybe the county should take it on to make a general one, and then the specific organizations or boards put their specific information in, such as the codes that would apply to the election board probably aren't going to apply to the board on aging. And that would take some of the work away from the individual boards, and also meeting time and other things. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does.
Just my 2 cents. Thank you for continuing. Press on.
Thank you. And that is another thought that I think I would, ask our attorney, our solicitor, Attorney Raddick, you know, and I didn't think about that in that whole conversation of bylaws is, maybe that is a route to go, or a thought that would the council prefer to create the bylaws for all of the boards, that we're under their direction. They appoint the members of this board, except for the chair, and they have the power to remove, and they only have the power to remove a board member. This board does not have the power to remove board members.
Right, that's
so-
true, that they have the power to remove, so like that's where it couldn't, it can't go in opposition to what county council's powers and duties are. But that's something that we'd have to look at, because I'm not sure about if they can do if that is something that they would have to do. That's something I had to have to look at.
Well, I think
Okay.
that if we make the bylaws, and we're getting into a discussion after the discussion, but I think that if we make the bylaws, like, it would just, you know, we would forward it to you, okay? And say, hey, and if it's not allowed to be in there, you just say, no, that's not allowed to be in there. I mean, that's the bottom line. I don't think we need to, like, you know, I just think we need a set of bylaws, and I think it's a good idea. I think it's and something we need, and that's it. I mean, we would be cautious of not overstepping on it. I just think it's something that should be done.
Good discussion on the bylaws, I think, and good questions. I'll add that to the agenda for the next meeting, and we'll have Attorney Raddick do some looking into that for us, and then we can go forward with further discussion. I don't see anybody else with any hands up.
Walter's hand was up.
I think
But I
that
don't know
had
if it's
been
still
left.
up. Okay,
maybe.
all right.
Yeah. And so is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Ms. Fasaro, and a second by